I'm showing off today a camera follow script. This is just for a simple 2D game, but it could be adapted for a 3D game as well. What I have here is the main camera in the scene and the player, which is Gus right here. The goal was to have this camera smoothly follow the character right here, and what we had before was just sort of a rigid movement where the camera would lock to the position of the character, offset on the z-axis a little bit, and just move wherever the character moved. Now what I have here in the inspector is I have the target, which is the actual character in the scene. This is going to automatically be assigned to whatever it currently has the player tag in the scene. It's just going to find the first object that has the player tag and assign it to target. If that doesn't work for your project, just go into the script and disable that, or you can change what tag you want, or just you can have it just assigned in this if you take out that one line of code. I have the vertical offset, and this is how much higher the camera is going to be than the character in gameplay. I have the lower limit. This is how low the character can go in the scene that the camera will actually follow him. And then I have the speed. This is how fast the camera is going to move from where it is to where it needs to be, which is where the character is. And we'll just kind of see how this looks. You can see that was pretty smooth movement. It can be slower or it can be a lot faster depending on how you change this value. Now I have it set to 0.05 here. You could, if you say have a different scale in your game or you would just want it to move really, really slow, maybe you've got a space game and that works best for you, you could just change it to a little bit smaller number. And you'll see when I play it with this, I'll turn the audio off this time. When I move, it's a lot slower camera movement, not quite fast enough to keep up with my character, but maybe fast enough to keep up with yours. And then, of course, if you want maybe really rigid movement, and if that's the case, I recommend modifying the script to where it doesn't actually use a lerp function. But if you want really rigid movement, just increase this number a little bit. And here I'll set it to 1, and this just means that the camera is going to actually lock to the character position. And you can see it's really rigid how he moves across the scene right here. Most noticeable when he dies and has to snap back to the beginning. So it just snaps it right back there. It doesn't move across the scene. And I'll set that back to its original value, and I'll show you what the script looks like. In Visual Studio here, I've got the 4 variables that we have set up, the public transform, which is the character, the vertical offset, lower limit, and the speed. Now the transform is set here in the start function, so as soon as the game starts, it'll go find the first object that has the player tag and assign its transform to target to be used down here. And then I also will take the main camera, which is what the script's attached to, and I'll make sure that it isn't a child of a different object, just to make sure that we aren't getting any kind of weird transforms as a result of that. Now in the update function down here, I have the just a if-else statement. Now if the target position is in the vertical set isn't lower than my lower limit, then it'll use this portion of the function, this lerp function right here. And this will just transform from where the camera is, its current local position x, y, and z, to where the target is, just in x and y, plus our vertical offset, making sure that it is up a little bit higher than the character, at least in my scene. You could always set this to 0 if you don't want this to have an effect. And then it just maintains the z offset that my camera has in the scene, which is just its transform.localposition.z, and the speed at which it moves is of course speed. Now, if the character does get lower than what my lower limit is, it won't use that same lerp function, but it will use a pretty similar one. So again, we're taking from the regular transform that the camera has, its local position in the x, y, and z, and then it will move it to the target's x and maintain its z, but for the y, it's actually not going to use the target position at all. It's going to use the lower limit plus its offset, just to make sure I don't go and see below the water in my scene. Now, again, your game might not need exactly this, but this is pretty much how you would want to set up a 2D follow script. And I'll be certain to post this script so that you can actually download it if you want to use it in your project instead of having to type all this out.